Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another Unmet Style Designer Chat session. I'm here with Jeffrey Zeldman, and we wanted to talk about an event apart coming to Atlanta. So, Jeffrey, this is not your first time in Atlanta.
No, but this is going to be a great time in Atlanta.
Really?
Our first time in Atlanta was our worst show ever, and
Oh,
nothing to do with Atlanta. All just mistakes that we made
no. Right.
starting the conference. We started the conference, and Eric Meyer and I started this web design conference in 2005 in December with like 100 attendees in a tiny little room in a museum in Philadelphia. We said that's pretty good. Let's expand and we'll go to Atlanta.
Right.
And we picked a place in Turner Field that we thought would be cool. We were looking for like funky venues at that time because we weren't really
Right.
big. We weren't big enough yet to work with hotels that have big spaces. So, and I would say this place in Turner Field, it would be a great place to have a wedding party or a bachelor party or...
But not a web conference.
No, there were a couple of problems. The Wi-Fi never worked through the whole session, and our attendees are, they're pretty wired up,
Right.
wireless.
Right.
They're, this was before Twitter was totally widespread, but
Right.
people still had to check email and all that stuff that you do.
Yeah.
And
Wi-Fi is always an issue.
it's not for us now because we actually have a guy. We have a Wi-Fi guy who basically comes to our events, bringing the bandwidth we need, so
That's great.
that for at least one, everybody has at least Wi-Fi on at least one device, right? I mean, the other problem is now we've got people coming with, they've got netbooks and iPads and phones, and they want to put everything on the fastest network possible. And so, I mean, it's a problem at every conference, but we really feel like in the last year, we figured that out, and our bandwidth is really good. But at this time, back in 2006, when we went to Turner Field, we didn't know about that. And
Right.
when they said, we've got Wi-Fi, don't worry, it didn't work.
trusted.
It rained. I think Punxsutawney Phil didn't come out and look at his shadow, so the Wi-Fi was down. I don't know why the Wi-Fi was down, but it was
Right.
definitely down. And there was a man trying to fix it all day. And he kept on telling us to announce to our audience that the Wi-Fi would work. If we just said, sorry, there's no Wi-Fi, we'll figure out something nice to do for you folks, that probably would have been fine.
Yeah, you can't string them along.
But we kept making the mistake of going, we're being assured that there'll be, there'll be Wi-Fi soon. And, and then there were pillars in front of us. So you could either, depending on where you were seated, you would either be looking at a pillar and see part of the screen, or you'd look at the pillar and see part of the speaker, but not
Right.
the... And, Jason Santa Maria, Eric Meyer, and I were running around with boxes full of, T-shirts, and it was just...
Right.
It was amateur night. It was amateur night in Dixie, literally. And we were so... I mean, people were really nice. Nobody complained. They thought they said it was an okay show.
Right.
But we were just spooked. and we've been wanting to come back to Atlanta, but this is the first time we finally feel like, okay,
That's good.
now we're ready. And
Okay.
and we have lined up for Atlanta. I don't want to, I don't want to insult any other city or any speakers.
Right.
Like, they're all going to be great shows, but we really worked hard to make with Atlanta to get like speakers that we know have really important messages and that we know
Yeah.
attendees will connect
Your
with.
speakers are amazing for Atlanta.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, we've got, Andy Clark doing Hard Boiled. We've got Christina Halverson bringing a whole
She's doing a whole day.
Right, she's doing a whole day of content strategy. I mean, you don't have to attend that. You can attend just the content strategy, or you can attend the 2-day conference, just the 2-day conference,
Right.
or you can save $100 by attending both. And, most people attend both,
Right.
but you don't have to. And and we really want to make Atlanta one of our regular cities, because we've also tried, we've tried New Orleans, which we love, and we've tried Austin.
Right.
But I mean, they're not the same. I'm not saying it's the same part of the country, but we really haven't found a southeastern home yet, and we're really hoping Atlanta will be it.
Atlanta's a great city. Clearly, you're passionate about the industry in general. You really seem to be really in a event apart and putting on a good show. Why did you guys start doing the events in the first place? What got you into doing that?
That's a great question. I kept running into Eric Meyer at different places where I was speaking. I remember one time uh, be you know being in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and there was Eric Meyer. We were both going to speak at the same place. I mean,
Right.
it was crazy, and we would at many of these conferences. I mean, some of these conferences were very well run, but we didn't think there wasn't any conference that was exactly the conference either of us would have put on. In other
Okay.
words, they were good and they covered interesting subjects, but they weren't really as standards focused, as CSS focused as we might have done. They
Right.
weren't, or if they were good on code, they weren't that great on design, or
Right.
I mean, or if they were all around good, they weren't very advanced. So they
Right.
would be like really good all around conferences for like let's say an intermediate person, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're already, you've read Eric's book and you've read Dan Cederholm's books and you know what you're doing with code, where do you go next? There wasn't any, and we love like we go to South by Southwest every year, and I
Right.
love that show, and that's a great show for, in Austin in
Yeah.
March. That's a great show for what's going to happen on the web next and what kind of social stuff is going on. That's a great conference. We love it, but there wasn't any particular conference for standardistas
Mm-hmm.
who wanted to be great at user experience design, understand how to work with content and all that stuff. So, and I had some experience advise, whenever I would speak at a conference, they would say, well, who else should we have? And I would tell them.
Right.
And so Eric and I used to meet at South by Southwest for breakfast every year and go, and go, basically we were advising other conferences on who they should have.
So
And we just said, why don't we do this? And
yeah.
and if we tried to do it at the level that it is now, we would have failed because it was way too big an enterprise. We needed other people to help us. But we had, like with any business, you really have to start small. So we really started like an Andy Hardy movie where your mom makes the costumes and your dad builds the sets and the kids put on a play. It really was, good content, but not good production
You had
and
to learn
small.
how to do it first. Right.
We had to learn how to do it,
Right.
right? Because there's a lot to it.
Well, speaking of that, it's 2 days with 3 days with the extra workshop, and you talked about wanting to build a conference just for standardistas. How do you go about curating the 2 days? How do you, this, if you don't mind, how do you put it together?
Sure. Well, one thing to focus on is what is happening right now. And right now is a very, very exciting time to be a web designer, right? Because mobile's huge and touchscreens and people are figuring all that stuff out.
It feels
and
new.
It feels new. And Ethan Marcotte came up with responsive web design, and,
Right.
and that's a great thing. And a lot of people are excited about it, but not everyone can figure out how to do it or how to do it in, beyond the examples he gave. Content strategy is something that we've cared about. I mean, I've had a content strategist at HappyCog since as long as the agency existed, and
Wow.
I've worked with, right? I'm a writer, right? So
Right.
I've always
Right.
worked with those people, but now we're at a point in the maturation of the medium where a lot of designers and developers want to hear about that stuff. They're not going to write the copy for the website, but they want to, everyone's familiar with the experience of you don't have the copy yet and you don't have the copy yet, and the client wants it built, or, or your boss wants it built and you still don't have the content. And then finally, you've designed it, you've built it, you've installed it in the CMS, and now you get the copy and it doesn't fit the layout at all.
Right.
Right? And everything that people want to do on the site doesn't make sense with the navigation.
Right.
So it's really important to get that stuff squared away first. But your boss is going to be hard to get content out of, and your colleagues are hard to get content out of. And so even if you're not a content strategist, there's all kinds of things you can do. So, we knew that we wanted to work with Christina again. Another great person is Erin Kassane on that
Right.
subject, but she's not speaking much this year. So
Okay.
Jason Santa Maria has been doing amazing things with typography
Yes.
for wow, what's the name of the company?
Typekit.
Typekit. Yeah,
Yes.
they're a wonderful company. They've totally, I think, very disruptively made people aware of web fonts.
Oh, absolutely.
they're not the only people doing web fonts, but they got there first. They're doing it very, very well. They have a great user interface. They're actually a sponsor of the show, so
Saw that.
that's nice too. But that's not the reason we brought Jason in. We would have had him anyway.
Right.
But he's
You
going
have
to
Jeff
talk about.
Fiend showing up too, right?
We do,
Yeah.
and we've had Jeff Veen way before he was in Tiger. We had Jeff Veen when he was working for Google still.
Right.
Jeff Veen is just. Jeff Veen is like a minister of the web. He's
Yeah.
he's like a preacher, and
Right.
he's just amazing. You sit there, and he makes you laugh, and he makes you cry, and you get up wanting to like go do amazing things.
Yeah.
So,
He's
and
a great storyteller.
he's a great storyteller.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I think of this as kind of like we also put together custom music mixes for these shows, and
wow.
and we pay ASCAP and BMI, so we're supporting the musicians and everything. But with the mixtape, when you make a
Wow.
mixtape, it's like energy, 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 and then mellow,
Yeah.
right? I'm being simplistic, but it's kind of like that too.
Right.
So
Right.
maybe we have a new person who's a little bit untested, so we put them in between two people we know are just going to kill, or
Okay.
we have a hard, a heavy code session. So then we have a really funny session with Jared Spool,
Gotcha.
where you learn a lot, but you're also going to laugh because then your brain can relax a little bit after, absorbing all that code.
That's great.
So-
That seems like the hardest part about putting a conference together.
The
Like,
flow.
Yeah, like absolutely. Like you can get people to speak. I mean, clearly you're Happy Cog, and you can invite these guys and they'll show up. But like putting the story of the day together is just difficult.
It's the most important thing
It
because
really
otherwise you don't learn.
Let me back up a little bit and ask you a question that I've been wanting to ask you personally. Is how did you break into speaking in the first place?
Right.
'Cause everybody aspires, right?
Everybody aspires. I spoke in Istanbul for the first time.
Really?
So here's what happened. I would go to. I was terrified of speaking, right? And I had started the Web Standards Project. So, for instance, Linda Weinman,
Right.
lynda.com.
Yes.
She was doing something at, I don't even remember the name of this show. It was some show in New York, and she said, George Olson, co-founder of the Web Standards Project, is going to be there. Jeff Veen's going to be there. You should be there, and you guys should just explain to our audience at this mega show, at this one of those auditorium type show. I mean, not auditorium. What am I thinking of? It was like the Javits Center,
Right,
just
right.
this huge place, and I just sort of skulked in the back. Not sulked. I sort of skulked in the back. I sort of sat at the table and like nodded my head, but I was not ready emotionally. And so then here's what happened. Because of the Web Standards Project and because of the first book that I'd written, or because he liked my website or whatever, this wonderful gentleman in Turkey wrote to me and said, "We're having this conference. It's a week-long conference about computers and the internet. We want an American keynote speaker, and that should be you. And we can pay you, and we'll fly you out." And I said, "Can my girlfriend come?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Great." And I said, "Can we stay in a hotel?" He said, "Yes, you'll stay in a hotel." And he's a really, really sweet guy. And so
Wow.
and I said, "Okay, well, this is a chance to visit this country that's like
Yeah.
part Europe, part Asia. I've never been there. This is
Right.
going to be really exciting. I got to do it." And I stood up on stage, and I gave my talk, which I based kind of on my book, the first book that I'd written. It was about, I think it was about who owns the content on the web and designing websites and things like that. And half the audience, a lot of people in Turkey speak English, so half the
Right.
audience just sat there with no headphones, and the other half wore headphones. And I was so scared,
Right.
but it went fine. And after that, I was like, okay, I didn't give my first talk at like a meetup with 12 people. I gave my first talk in an auditorium full of people from another country, half of whom didn't speak English, and I didn't die.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay.
It only
And
gets better from there.
it gets better. It was a great experience, and it was a great learning experience. And then the next big thing for me, so I started speaking in America after that. Jim Hyde from Thunder Lizard, who put on web
Right.
design,
Right. Right.
contacted me and said, "Wow, we'd really like you to speak." And I always like shocked and flattered, and this was great. And Jim's a wonderful guy. He put on a great conference at that time, and I went and I wrote a 30-page speech that I typed, right? I mean, I typed it on the computer, but I
Right.
printed it. And I showed up, and Jeff Veen was one of the speakers.
Oh no.
And Jeff Veen said, "Hey, I'll take you out to dinner," because we knew each other from the Web Standards Project, but
Right.
we hadn't really had any time to hang out. And he's a super nice guy. So he takes me out. We were going out for dinner, and I pulled this boom thing out of my case. He says, "What's that?" I said, "That's my speech for tomorrow." And he said, "No, it isn't." I said, "Yeah." He said, "You're going to read that?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Throw that away and tell stories. Just tell
Right.
stories. You've been designing websites for, I don't know what, 4 years.
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
stories to tell." So I said, "Okay." And again, it was like a leap of faith, and it
Right.
worked really well. I didn't tear it up because that's a lot of pages to tear, but
It's like
I threw it away, and I got up there, and I just talked about the ideas I wanted to talk about, and use stories. And that's still how I do it. I do
right.
make slides today, but basically I tell stories, and not as well as Jeff Veen. Nobody does it as well as him, but his
Right.
technique is a really good technique.
Yes, it is.
I
I
think a
agree.
lot of people, I've seen a lot of beginning speakers make too many slides and then feel like they have to explain each slide, and that puts people to sleep.
Right. It's a
What you
good.
want, yeah, I mean, a slide is almost like a counterpoint to
Right.
me,
Yeah, it should support what you're discussing.
or be like the visual on an ad, right? You're the
Right.
headline, and this is the visual, but not, but not don't make a picture of a man and say this is a picture of a man.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, or
right?
read it. Yeah.
Right. I've
Well,
seen. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sarah Parmenter is one of your speakers, and you've had Dan Cederholm a few times. They've both recently written posts about new speakers coming to conferences, what they should expect. What kind of advice would you give? I mean, clearly, an event apart, in my opinion, is a pinnacle that we'd all strive for. But what
Thank
would be
you.
like some recommendations you'd make to somebody who's about to show up for a conference for the first time?
A speaker.
Yes.
I think for speakers, I would advise that you find out what the other speakers are going to be talking about, so you can respond to it in yours, because you're creating a whole couple days of education and entertainment. This is because this is also entertainment for
Yes.
people like us, who the other people in our lives, we really can't talk about our obsessions. I mean, they'll let us talk, but they don't get it, right?
Yeah. They don't
So,
really
but
want you to talk about it.
they don't really want to. Another thing I realized about JavaScript, honey, that's
No.
nice, dear, right?
Yes.
But so here we are in this place where we can actually talk about all the stuff we're obsessed with. The worst thing that happens in a conference, and it often can't be helped, but sometimes a speaker flies in at the last minute, and they get up on stage and they have no idea what anyone else talked about, and they give the same examples that someone else did, or they directly contradict the speaker before them without even knowing, without knowing to say, "I'm going to disagree with Sally."
Right.
They just say it like it's news, and that makes the audience feel like, wow, we're having a shared experience, but the speaker isn't.
Right.
So I
That's a great
think
point.
if you listen to what other people, we did a thing last year where we hired our best speakers, or some of our best speakers, who could talk about topics that we knew would be really important. And in the first session, which was in Seattle in 2010, they sat in the green room listening to each other and changed their speeches. As
Right.
Ethan's like watching Andy Clark, and he goes, "Oh well, I can't talk about this now. I'm going to do that." And what happened was these themes evolved, which were amazing. And so now we're trying to do that without having to actually have people do it live in the green room. So we have people talk to each other about what they're going to address, to make
Oh
sure that
wow.
that if there is overlap, it's intentional and educational and helpful.
Wow.
And that's one thing. And another thing is hang out with the people. And our speakers are really good about that. I don't like going to a conference and then the speakers sort of go off into this special room just for them.
Right.
And I sit there and have lunch with my workmates that I came there with. I think if I'm going to come to a conference, one of the things that it's about for me is to meet and maybe hang out with some of
Right.
the people on stage, because they have the same problems I do, but maybe they have a different experience or a different way of looking at solving it. If they didn't, they wouldn't be standing on the stage.
Right.
So So we encourage our speakers to just hang out with the attendees, which they do at the lunches and at the breakfasts and at the parties. This year we have like parties, parties, and more
Yeah,
parties,
yeah. Well, that's the thing with conferences.
which is good,
Yeah,
which is really
it's
good
great.
because as long as you can talk, right? I mean, I think again another cool thing about conferences is they're an opportunity to network with people you
That's
don't
right.
usually get to.
That's right.
But even if you can't come to a conference, I mean, there's meetups everywhere and there's groups everywhere. What do you belong to? I know you must belong to a number of groups in
We do. I run a local refresh meetup here, and we
Cool.
have a AIGA chapter, a statewide chapter that's pretty active.
Yeah, I've heard that. I think that's cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. South Carolina has a very active AIGA chapter.
are you and you're cool with going to Atlanta?
Oh, absolutely.
That's I
Yeah,
mean,
I think it's a great city. It's a great central spot. I know there's a lot of community in Orlando and Tampa. It's like a huge community down there, and it's not that far for those guys. So it's a great location.
this is good. This is good. I mean, we've thought about Orlando too. We haven't been there yet, but
Yeah, I think
Dan Benjamin wants us to go there
yeah,
because
he lives down there, doesn't he?
he
Yeah,
lives there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Orlando is or the whole that it's like Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, that whatever you call that, dipping down into Miami. The Carsonified event has left Miami.
Where are they going?
They're in Las Vegas. And they were in
Yeah.
Miami for like 3 years in a row, so it's kind of a void. Um, so I think it's a good time for Event Apart in Atlanta,
It's a
and it's a good
it,
spot.
it's a well, we're definitely very excited about Atlanta. I don't like Las Vegas because I don't drink, I don't smoke, and I don't gamble. So, and I don't want to. So I
Right?
think that's like a really fun town if you have a lot of vices, which I used to, right? But now that I don't,
You have to
that'd
stay
be kind of
away.
like, yeah, it's kind of like, hi, I'm on this diet. Let's go to a candy store. So I don't. I can sit in my room and go, wow,
Right?
this jacuzzi in my room is really awesome here at the
Yeah.
Caesar's Palace. But yeah, so I don't,
Right?
nothing against Las Vegas, and I know a lot of people love it, but
Yeah.
to me, a city where I can walk around is nice.
Yeah.
Atlanta, I mean, that's a place where and a place with authentic local cuisine and
Yes.
customs and all that. I think it's just great.
Yes. Make sure you track down some barbecue while you're there. I
Okay,
know
okay,
you say you're on a diet, but you need to do it when you're in the South.
sure,
You have to do that. And I'm sure lots of people will tell you where to go.
yeah, definitely, cool.
Well, thank you
Well,
so much. I just wanted to, help you get the word out about Event Apart coming to Atlanta.
Gene, I totally deeply appreciate that on
Problem.
behalf of all of us. Thank you very much.
Well,
And I'm really looking forward to seeing you at the show.
absolutely. Look forward to it.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.